Hi, I just want to start this video by saying this is not a review. This is just me documenting something that I like doing in my free time. So feel free to roast me in the comments and let me know if you even consider this style real art. I hope that you get some pleasure out of watching this process, and thanks for watching. Today I will be using 3 different painting mediums on a fluid acrylic piece I created recently. There is some great cell detailing that I would like to work around, while generally just trying to fix this mess over here. The mediums are fairly different from each other, so I took the piece over to Photoshop to try and plan out what it may look like. This is just a rough idea, but it does give me a good jumping off point. Based on my mock-up, I'm going to go ahead and tape off the first layers. I have been using a mixture of craft glue and water to better seal down the edges of the tape. This is a method I'm still testing, but so far it hasn't ruined any of the layers underneath, so I'm going to keep on testing it. I went ahead and painted over the taped off area. Because my paints are mixed with pouring medium, it did take a couple layers. I want a lot of texture in this piece, so instead of smoothing out the brush strokes, I tried to emphasize them. My plan is to just build on top of that with the lighter gray shade, repeating the same process. Besides getting too stoned last night and painting multiple layers of the wrong color, I'd say that went pretty well. Now I'm going to be moving on to the dark gray lines, and for that I'm going to be using the Moto Acrylic Twin. I struggle with drawing straight, evenly spaced lines, even when using a ruler. So I am going to mark out guides of where I want the lines to be, but I know that I'm going to have to go back 2 or 3 times and kind of rough up the lines and make the unevenly spacedness seem intentional. So that did turn out better than I expected. Halfway through, I decided to ditch the ruler and just use the pencil. There is one spot right over here that I did mess up the line and had to wipe it away. There's some slight shadowing. I plan on just cleaning it up with a Q-tip and some isopropanol. I've got my painting set up on this little makeshift table. I'm going to be going in and painting some more of these cow spots. I'm hoping to paint them over in this area. Once that is dry, I'm going to take the Tri-Art modeling paste and build up little peaks for texture on each of the cow spots, and then go back in and paint them the dark gray color again. So I really like how that turned out. The modeling paste was super easy to work with. It had a lot of structure and really didn't change shape during the drying process. I did have to go back in and repaint a couple spots that were a little hard to reach the first time around with the paintbrush. During this time, I realized that I missed one of the spots with the modeling paste. It's okay. I made the decision. I'm not going to go back in and change it. I'm just going to keep moving forward. Next, I'm going to make some irregular shapes with some masking tape and mask off some of the areas of the painting and use the minty green color to fill it in. After that, I'm most likely going to go back in with the Moto acrylic marker and just clean up the edges. Well, that tape was not pleasant to pull off. I'm probably going to go back to using my airbrush machine when it comes to filling in the smaller taped off areas, even though I like the color cohesiveness that using the acrylic paint gives the piece. Since the paint is mixed with pouring medium, it just made it very elastic, meaning that it clung better to the tape than it did the painting. Even with my X-Acto knife, it was just a pain to pull off. The only downside to using my airbrush is I can never seem to color match correctly, but that's just something I'm gonna have to take into consideration when designing the next painting. Overall, the craft glue did hold down the edges quite nicely. There was just a couple spots I had to go back in and touch up ever so slightly with a smaller paintbrush, but nothing major. Next up is the Liquitex String Gel. This was the first medium that I ever did get my hands on, and I generally like to use it within the last couple layers of a painting in a contrast color, just splattering it all over the place. This time around, I am going to be trying something a little bit different. I'm going to be dripping it down the painting in the larger pink area. Before I do any of that, I'm going to take my dusty old cutting board and try some test drips in hopes of achieving the right paint to medium ratio before applying it to the canvas. Although the string gel medium did achieve the dripping effect I was looking for, I found it fairly redundant to mix a already fluid acrylic in with the medium. I could have achieved the exact same thing by just dripping the paint down the canvas. I did go ahead and apply a couple more layers of the drips, making sure that each layer was completely dry before moving on to the next. Lastly, I'm going to be working with the golden glass bead gel. I'm going to start by laying down some of the mint green color and allowing that to completely dry before applying the medium. I have worked with this medium in the past, and the only note I have to give is if you want the medium to dry completely transparent, you do have to apply it in very thin layers. Since I will be painting over it in the end, I'm not too worried about the transparency, more about the texture that it built. While waiting for the glass bead medium to dry, I went ahead and took an X-Acto knife to cut off the pooled paint from the edges of the canvas. After that, I took the darkest color and just finished the side. Once the medium was dry, I went ahead with the lightest green color and painted over the glass beads. I like the way that this looks versus just having the glass beads sit on top of the paint. I find that it's just a little bit more cohesive. Overall, I'm pretty happy with how this piece turned out. I really like running my fingers over all of the different textures, and I do plan on continuing to experiment with them in future pieces. Putting my paintings digitally into Photoshop at different stages is fairly new to my process, so I'm still experimenting with the idea, but being able to plan out an abstract piece in this way does make me feel like I have a lot more control over the end product. I would like to hear your guys' opinion. Feel free to let me know what you liked, what you thought I could have done differently, or if you hated it altogether. As always, feel free to roast me in the comments on whether or not you think this is even real art. I hope that you enjoyed some part of this video, and thanks for sticking around till the end.